After a tough breakup, I reluctantly moved back in with my family in rural Massachusetts. The transition was hard. I had loved my life in Boston, vibrant, busy, and close to the city. Now, I was in a quiet, uneventful place I'd only ever known as a child. Back home, I returned to my old job at an urgent care facility, working night shifts that left me feeling drained and disconnected. One early morning after a shift, I decided to treat myself. I picked up some food at a bagel shop and stopped for gas at a local station. The lot was eerily empty, save for one other car that arrived after me, a blue sedan. As I pumped gas, the driver, a strange man, approached me. He asked, "Want to see a funny trick?" Against my better judgment, I replied, "What trick?" He started doing that childish finger-pulling illusion, the one where you pretend to separate your finger. His unsettling demeanor made me uncomfortable, so I laughed awkwardly, hoping he'd leave. Instead, he lingered, repeating the trick over and over. Relieved when my tank was full, I hurried inside to pay, and when I returned, the man was gone, but his car remained, still fueling. I quickly drove home, making sure to lock my doors and even check the back seat out of paranoia. At home, I unlocked the door with a hidden spare key, then re-hid it before settling down in the kitchen to eat. The house was silent, my parents sound asleep upstairs. Suddenly, I heard the distinct sound of the front door unlocking and opening. I froze, my heart racing. "Mom? Dad?" I called out, but there was no response. I peeked into the foyer, no one was there. Panicked, I ran to my parents' room and woke them up. My dad, alarmed, grabbed a flashlight and began checking the house. My mom and I followed closely as he moved room to room, turning on lights and searching for any sign of an intruder. When my dad checked outside, we discovered the spare key was missing. My mom lectured me for not being cautious when re-hiding it, but the realization hit. That man from the gas station must have followed me. As my dad searched the basement, I decided to check the dining room. Kneeling to look under the table, I froze in horror. The man from the gas station was there, crouched beneath the table. I screamed, and chaos erupted. My dad rushed upstairs as the man tried to flee. A violent struggle broke out. My dad, though older, fought bravely, and my mom and I joined in, punching and hitting the intruder. Finally outnumbered, he bolted out the front door. We called the police, who arrived quickly, but knowing he still had the spare key left us uneasy. My dad stayed up all night, sleeping in the living room with a chair wedged against the door. The next morning, he replaced the locks, and the days of hiding a spare key outside were over. I still feel guilty for bringing danger to my family, but I'm grateful we're all safe. That night changed me. I'm more cautious, and I'm more desperate than ever to move out and regain my independence. My brother lives in Florida, and I often drive down from New York to visit him. The journey is a grueling 18 hours, but it gives me flexibility during my month-long stays, sparing my brother from chauffeuring me around. On one such trip, I set off early, 2 a.m., to avoid heavy traffic. The drive was uneventful until hunger struck around 4 a.m. Spotting a Wendy's sign off I-95 in rural Jersey, I exited the highway. The area was desolate, with no streetlights, just my car's headlights piercing the darkness. I pulled into Wendy's drive-thru, but after minutes of silence at the intercom, I realized it didn't open until 6 a.m. Frustrated, I prepared to leave when 3 sharp knocks on my window jolted me. A man stood outside, grinning. "Place isn't open," he said, then gestured to his car parked nearby. "My battery's dead. Could you help me jump it?" His plea felt genuine, and believing in karma, I reluctantly agreed. I pulled up beside his car, and we connected the jumper cables. Yet his car wouldn't start. He stepped away to make a phone call in hushed Spanish, then returned, suggesting we try again. Just as we were about to, the roar of 2 pickup trucks shattered the quiet. They sped into the lot, boxing in my car. Panic surged through me as the man's grin twisted into something sinister. Thinking fast, I yanked off the jumper cables, slammed my hood shut, and darted into the woods. Branches tore at my shins as I ran, the shouts of multiple men closing in behind me. I tripped and fell, deciding to lie still and hope they'd lose track of me. The voices eventually faded, and the woods fell silent. Then I heard my car alarm blaring in the distance. Cautiously, I crept back to the lot. The trucks and the man were gone, but so was most of my stuff. My car's rear window was smashed, and everything, clothes, valuables, luggage, was stolen. The police arrived but offered little solace. The vehicles had fake or missing plates, making the culprits nearly impossible to trace. I drove home defeated, the long, empty road mirroring my despair. The first rest area encounter had shaken me, but I was relieved to be back on the highway, putting distance between myself and that unsettling man. Still, I hadn't solved my initial problem. I badly needed to use the bathroom. Luckily, another rest area appeared about 20 minutes later, eerily similar to the first one, but this time, the parking lot was completely empty. I parked directly in front of the restroom building and rushed inside. Finally alone, I let out a sigh of relief as I used the stall. But just as I was finishing, I heard footsteps echo into the room. They didn't stop at the urinals. Instead, they came directly to my stall and stopped outside. My heart sank when I saw a pair of shoes through the crack at the bottom of the stall door. Whoever it was stood motionless, inches from the door. My stomach churned as a terrifying thought hit me. Was it the same guy from the first rest area? Summoning courage, I called out, "Someone's in here." No response. Panic coursed through me. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911, putting the call on speaker so the intruder could hear. 911, what's your emergency? The operator's voice echoed in the room. I'm being followed by a dangerous man. I feel threatened, I said loudly, my voice trembling but firm, hoping the stranger got the message. It worked. I heard the person's footsteps retreat and the door to the restroom creak open as they left. I stayed on the line with the operator, explaining what had happened and requesting police assistance. The minutes dragged as I waited, locked in the stall, until finally, a knock came at the restroom door. "Police," a voice called. The officer escorted me out, and I described the man and his vehicle from the previous encounter. After ensuring my car was untouched, the officer waited with me briefly before we both left the area. The rest of the drive was uneventful, but the experience left me shaken. I couldn't shake the thought that the man from the first rest stop had somehow followed me. As a man myself, I had always thought encounters like these happened to women more often, but I realized then that anyone could be a target. It was a chilling reminder to stay vigilant on the road.